Have you ever been asked, where are you really from? As an Asian American, I get my Americanness questioned all the time, even in California. That question, where are you really from, and its implication that Asian Americans aren't somehow really American, was dangerously applied during World War II when the US government incarcerated 120,000 Americans of Japanese descent. My husband's grandparents were among them. But even while they were incarcerated by their own government, they retained the right to vote. However, having a legal right isn't a guarantee that you'll be free of voter suppression.
So what is voter suppression? Voter suppression targets people who have already been systemically disempowered and disenfranchised. There are laws that make it harder for certain populations to vote, and those laws manipulate election results. Voter suppression can look like states having voter ID laws, voter purges, and felony disenfranchisement.
I am a Chinese American US citizen and voting is my right. But all too often in Asian American history, we have had to fight for that right. In 1870, Congress passed the Naturalization Act banning Chinese people from becoming US citizens. Racist laws like that one sparked anti-Asian violence across the country. In 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, banning us from becoming citizens. Again. 10 years later, they said we all had to carry papers, meaning anybody at any time could ask people like me, where are you really from?
Those most impacted by voter suppression are Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, students, low-income communities, the elderly, and current and formerly incarcerated people.
Asian Americans didn't overcome federal policy barring us from citizenship and having access to the vote until 1952. And even then, poll workers challenged ballots with Japanese names, claiming that anyone who was Japanese wasn't eligible to vote. However, having a legal right isn't a guarantee that you'll be free of voter suppression. Voter suppression is still widespread in the United States, and Asian Americans are affected. My mother-in-law speaks of how her parents never missed an election. They considered voting a privilege. And while voting is your right, it is also your privilege. Your privilege in having a say in how you're governed.
Before you encourage others to vote, it's important to acknowledge that not everyone has the right to vote. Voting is not the answer or the magic fix to all oppressive systems, but it is a small step in the right direction. Have these conversations with your friends and your family. Research voter ID laws, voter purges, and felony disenfranchisement. Register to vote if you can. Research your local measures and candidates, and then exercise your right to vote.
Talk to your friends and family. Make sure you're registered. And come this fall, get that ballot in early.